I'm nervous. Do
you want me to pause it?
No. She always makes me lead it.
I'm proud to be a woman. I'm proud to be a woman. I'm proud to be a woman. I'm proud to be. I'm proud to be a woman. I'm proud to be a woman. I'm proud to be a woman. I'm proud to be me.
Hello and welcome back to the Female Beat. My name is Lexi Jones. This is
Shanti Meek.
and we are joined today with Miss Nicole Beverly. Thank you for being here with us.
Thank you for having me.
Nicole Beverly is a survivor of domestic violence and has a master's degree in social work. And she has written a book called Finding Nicole, a true story of love, loss, betrayal, fear, and hope. And it is going to be a movie coming out soon. So we have Nicole here with us today. We're so excited.
Today we are working on an audiobook.
Yes, I can't wait for that to come out. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. We're here at Divino Records Studio.
And we just have some questions for you if you don't mind us asking.
Sure.
Because we are a podcast that celebrates women and especially strong women. And I'm really inspired by you and your story. I think you're an incredibly strong woman. So first question, what inspired you to write a book, and have you written a book before?
So what inspired me to write the book actually was continuing to come up against barriers for helping victims in our local courts, the local law enforcement system. I had been trying to do like the boots on the ground work with them to get them to have a better understanding. And at some point I got to the point of frustration that I'm like, you know what? I need to do something that I have more control over and that I can reach more people. So I made the decision to write my story, but also include a guidebook for victims so that people could read my story, hopefully get a better understanding of domestic violence, the cycle of domestic violence, but then also have a resource as a guidebook in the back. So it truly came out of my frustration of not being able to do more, and I felt like the best way I could reach more people and help more people was by writing the book. My first book was actually in 5th grade. I won the Young Writers Contest for the state of Michigan, and of course it was a horror story about a haunted house, which is not shocking for anybody who knows me. So technically this is my second book, and I do plan on writing more.
Okay, fantastic.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to mention, because we just read through the first 16 chapters today, and there's a part, I think it was in the beginning, where you had mentioned that your boys, you have 2 sons, Myles and Carter,
Yes.
and that they wanted the cover to be very kind of vague and not look very, guidebook or whatever it's going to, the domestic violence topic, just so that people, and especially women who are reading this book in front of maybe, their husband, their boyfriend, whatever it is, that it's not a trigger point to anybody looking at what they're reading. I just thought that was so, first of all, intelligent and very smart.
It's fascinating.
I never even thought about something like that, and it's incredible. And then the back, you said it has all of the guidebook. There's, part 6, home security on a budget, there's just safety planning. It's really fantastic.
I tried to, cover, I tried to be the person in the guidebook that I wish I had when I left, because I had to learn so many lessons the hard way. So I wanted to give people the CliffsNotes version of what I went through, to give them tips, that I learned. Because it's things that other, your typical advocate's not gonna know or tell you if they haven't lived through it. So, yeah.
How long did it take you to write that?
So, the easy parts were pretty quick. And how a lot of people will ask me, well, how did you get it started? Because that's the hardest part.
Yeah.
So what I did is I really narrowed down what I thought were the most significant events, and then the most significant pieces to outline the chapters, and then went and expanded upon them. So that didn't take me that long, but once there were so I got that all done.
Yeah.
And then I knew the hard parts still had to be written. And so I kind of put it on a shelf for maybe, it was like actually during COVID. And I kept finding excuses,
You mean the hard parts of your own story?
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
So like the easier parts, like just telling about my background and his background, like I got through those. But I kept finding reasons to put it off. So finally I'm like, okay, you've got to do this. And I ended up going to an inn on the west side of Michigan, and I rented a room for 4 days.
Wow.
And with the purpose of just getting through the book and getting away from TV, distractions. At home, I always found excuses. So, but then I just really was able to delve into the hardest parts because I was alone and by myself. And it's the Lakeside Inn on the west side of the state. It's absolutely amazing. It's right on Lake Michigan. Like there's like a big cliff you walk down to get to the water. But I wrote most of my book on the front porch, which was so
what
cool.
city was that?
It's in Lakeside, Michigan,
okay.
which is actually a town.
Gotcha.
So very small town.
Yeah.
But that's where I really was able to delve. And of course, I go to my room for the really hard parts because there were some tears shed, and I didn't want it to be like out crying on the front porch of the inn. But interestingly enough, like as soon as I checked in, I see this story about there was the wife of one of the previous owners was thought to have been murdered by him.
Oh my god.
And that her
Wow.
remains were somewhere in the inn.
Oh my god.
And so I'm like, and this was like, I
That's
literally
incredible.
just looked this place up, found it, booked it. And so for that to have been, it was kind of, it was crazy coincidence. And then it also at one point was an artist commune. So people would go there to create art and write, and I'm like, okay, I picked the perfect place without even really knowing it. And part of me kept waiting. I'm like, okay, is she gonna give me a sign or something?
Yeah, I mean, if the story was true, it was almost like you were doing justice for her even writing the story.
Yeah, it was so crazy. I'm like, what are the chances? So,
is that in the book?
Yeah.
Oh
I put it like in the
that's
acknowledgements.
very cool.
Yeah. And I have sent them a copy, but it so getting through those hard parts in that space where I could just really delve into my emotions and be present with them again, which I hadn't done in a long time, was how I really pushed through. And then after that, the editing process was the hardest part. So initially my mom edited it, but she, I think, was too close to the story.
Yeah.
So there was a lot she missed. So I ended up getting it professionally edited before it was released.
Did you ever feel like you forgot some parts, or you ever feel like that you're not going to remember some of the things correctly?
Yeah, so one of the things that really helped me is because my story, like with the stalking, had gotten so crazy, and also the lack of help I was getting from law enforcement. I started documenting everything. So I was documenting the day, the time, who I talked to, what happened.
In like a journal?
In a journal, and I kept
idea.
it with me everywhere that I went. So that helped me tremendously with being able to go back and really reflect. And there's a section of the book that we haven't gotten to yet, where I actually have logged. Some of the journal entries are in there, and I'll be reading them out loud. But had I not done that, it probably would have been harder to like really remember the details. But just the outline. But things would come back, and even now with my kids, they'll say like, "Do you remember?" And I'll be like, "No, I don't remember that." But then once I sit on it for a minute, it'll start to come back, because our brains, with trauma, are designed to protect us by not remembering specific details, which is a lot of times a huge disadvantage for victims in court, because they don't remember the details and people think they're lying. So that documentation I had really helped me in court too, because I was able to use that as evidence during the trials.
Did you ever feel like it was hard for you to write and document when you were going through that process, because you're doing it while it was happening, correct?
Yeah, it was it was like hard to remember sometimes,
Yeah.
and it would get really frustrating. But then I think I had learned that if I didn't, I had nothing, and I knew how crucial it was for
You were
me
surviving.
to
You were trying
have
to
it.
survive. Yeah.
And it ended up being even more crucial in the end than I ever anticipated
Mhm.
it being. So the fact that I did it was, you know, a pain kind of. And when I
Yeah.
tell victims now, and it's in the guidebook too, like you
Right.
need to do it, and it's gonna be a pain and it's gonna suck. But having that information when you go to the police, when you go to court, and you can just pull it out
Mm-hmm.
and read it, people believe you.
Yeah.
So much more than if you're just trying to remember because
Mhm.
you're nervous and you're upset in those situations and you can't remember the details.
Mm-hmm.
So it was hard, but I think after a while it just became a routine.
Mm-hmm. Did you find out you were getting more support as you were writing down these documentations and stuff and showing people? Did you feel like you were getting more support from that, or did it take a while still?
It took a while still, but when it came down to the Attorney General taking my case, because we didn't know if they were going to take it or not, and they called me in and were asking me all sorts of questions, and when I pulled that out, they were shocked, I think, and they were like, okay, this makes her a much more credible witness, that she has all of this documented.
Isn't that crazy though?
Yeah. Absolutely, yeah, and that was like the whole purpose of that meeting with them, is they were seeing how credible of a witness I could be
Mhm.
when they were making that decision to take my case. So being able to pull that out, 100%,
Mm.
yeah, saved me, and I think it absolutely helped with the judges and the juries too. Like for me to be able to just pull up these documents that I had documented everything,
Mhm.
because like it's not going to be able to go back in time and like recreate those events. Yeah.